In Vegas on Sunday night, we have two teams who are currently trying to beat some allegations that they are quite soft.
With a capital T.
And they hire, yes, and they hired two new defensive coordinators on both sides of the ball. Blake Baker coming over from Missouri at LSU, and USC hires D'Anton Lynn from UCLA, just across town. He didn't have to sell his house. That's always nice. LSU a 4.5 point favorite. Over under 64.5, which might be the lowest over under we've seen in a USC game in quite some time. Damien, what are you looking for in this game on Sunday night?
Listen, here's the story. LSU hasn't won a season opener since 2019. I mean, you have got...
That's crazy.
Right? That's crazy. Right? Think about that. We just talked about, we're going to ask our trivia question being, how many season openers has Georgia won against ranked opponents? Well, LSU hasn't even won a season opener against a ranked or an unranked opponent since 2019. So they need to come out and just establish from the start of the season that they're a different team. We want to start better, we want to have a better season, and we want to finish better. I mean, Will Campbell already said, we're not going to gamble. We ain't going to Caesar's Palace. We're going to get in a fight. And that's kind of the mentality that those old LSU teams that I used to play against had. You know, whenever we played those teams, we knew that it was going to be like two heavyweight boxers stepping in the ring, going toe-to-toe for 15 rounds, throwing punches until somebody didn't get up. And we knew that when we played LSU, they were going to have that exact same mentality. So clearly it's on display. They're not hiding it. You know, they want the world to know that they're looking to get in a dogfight. So I expect them to show up, be physical. You know, they're big, fast, physical guys that play with a dirty edge. Well, I shouldn't say dirty, with a swampy edge, a little bit of a swampy edge, if you will. I don't want to call them dirty, but definitely a little bit of a swampy edge. So I think if they come out and play their style of football with the mentality that they're clearly showing, I think that they have a good chance to, you know, knock off a tough USC team and start their season better than they have in the past couple of years.
Chris, what do you see in this game?
You know, LSU may have the best offensive line in the country. At least that is the hope. Will Campbell, as you mentioned, potential top 10 pick. They might have a couple other NFL guys on there too. And that's going to be huge because, yeah, this is a lot of people around that program feel like this is the best offensive line they have had in a very long time. And so it has to live up to that. You give Garrett Nussmeier time. He hasn't played a bunch. He's been there for a few years. I feel like Garrett Nussmeier is really going to break out onto the scene in this game. Came in the SEC championship game a few years ago against Georgia, threw for, I think, almost 300 yards, played the bowl game against Wisconsin last year, threw for almost 400 yards. So I expect him to have a big game. They've got some new receivers. Obviously, they lost Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, but Kyron Lacey, they really like him as long as he kind of stops with the drops. They got CJ Daniels, the transfer from Liberty, so they should have some pretty good options in the pass game. So I expect this LSU team to continue to score points. Question is what happens on defense. And the thought is, hey, it can't be much worse, right? I mean, they bring most of those guys back in the secondary. They weren't great last year, but they were banged up last year. Question is defensive line. They don't have a lot of depth at tackle. They tried to get some guys in the portal in the spring. Didn't really work. So kind of up and down there, but I expect LSU, even with all the changes on offense, to be able to score a lot of points.
Yeah, I think one of the things you look at what Blake Baker did at Missouri and even a little bit to Miami before that, you know, they were defenses that overperformed relative to talent. And Missouri had a lot of talent, but they still were playing above what they had. And LSU was not doing that for a few years defensively. They've really been struggling there. And if they can play to their talent level, much less above it, I like it. Because you look at what LSU did last year, there were some schematic issues, but there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of tackling, and that's coaching. That's coaching. And if you have some connection with your players and guys are playing hard, I think you looked at what you saw from that LSU defense last year. I'd like to go back and count how many loafs there were when Ole Miss is running down the field or when Florida State's busting a big play. I mean, the second half against Florida State last year was a debacle, and it's hard to not point to effort. It looked like they broke, and they never really recovered the rest of the season. So if you can fix those things, I think you win this game. Let's get to the picks. I like LSU in this game. I think USC is a team that does still have some upside. I'm higher on them than a lot of other people. For a lot of the same reasons LSU, I think they can fix some of that defense. But I like LSU in this game to get it done, win the game on the line of scrimmage, fix the defense. Big game for Garrett Nussmeier. Give me LSU What do you guys like? Damien, where do you stand on this one?
Yeah, give me LSU. I'm buying all the stock. I mean, I'm an SEC guy at heart, obviously, so that's who I got. I want to see LSU get back to their brand of football. I want to see them improve in the secondary. I want to see that spirit, that LSU, that swagger. You know, they from the boot. Like, I want to see that on display. Like, we're over here talking about games last year where we're counting loaves and, you know, their spirit was broken. And like, that's not LSU. Like, whenever we talk about LSU football, that's not LSU. So I want to see them get back to their style of football and go ahead and put away an opponent who, again, no offense to USC, but I played against them in a season opener, and we know how these SEC versus West Coast team matchups are supposed to be. So I want to see LSU come out and handle business as they should.
Chris, what do you got?
I know you say West Coast teams, but technically it's a Big Ten team.
Well, right. I was about to say Pac-12, and I was like, oh, West
Big Ten teams in openers? We don't really
Midwestern
know, right?
powerhouse, USC.
Right, yeah. I'm going LSU as well, even with the 4.5. I think I'd probably take the over 2. I think LSU's just gonna score a lot of points. I like Miller Moss, but like we'll see when it's not just like a Holiday Bowl and whatnot. Yeah. And you know, for LSU, they've won 10 games each of the last 2 years. Brian Kelly's third year is always the year. That's the year he took the big jump in Central Michigan. At Cincinnati, I think they went to the Orange Bowl. Notre Dame, his third year was when they played in the national championship game. So, yikes. You know, maybe the offense was a year early. It'd be nice to have some of those guys from last year back, but I think LSU's going to be right in that CFP mix at the end of the season. The schedule is pretty favorable in terms of the bye weeks and who they get at home, and I think LSU's going to have a big year. So I'm taking LSU in this game.